Now we're going to clean up some loose ends in the loanable funds market. One thing that's interesting is in the government and loanable funds market video um, that you probably just saw. If the government runs a deficit, pushes interest rates up, and crowds out private sector investment, in other words, quantity demanded of private sector investment falls, okay, and that's bad for the economy. These two guys, however, one by the name of Ricardo, which is long time ago, and the other by the name of Barrow, who is still alive, by the way. Robert Barrow is an idol of mine. He's a growth economist and probably one of the best thinkers in terms of growth and development economics around. Other than Darren Acemoglu, but they're both probably equal in my opinion. They're geniuses when it comes to growth and development economics. Anyway, that's a totally separate story. This thing called the Ricardo-Barro effect, and what that essentially says is that it's very possible that if the government doesn't if the government runs a budget deficit, it may actually have no effect on the prevailing interest rate in the market. Now, a lot of people may argue that the situation in the 2000s, especially in the mid to late 2000s, up to even about 2013 or so, in the Great Recession, may actually be support for that hypothesis. I don't know, but it's something to toss out there, and it's something your book talks about. What the Ricardo-Barro effect essentially says is that, look, if the government runs a budget deficit, they're going to increase the demand for loanable funds. Now, if people are rational, okay, if consumers are rational, they're going to know that that budget deficit eventually has to be paid back. Well, how do you pay back a shortfall in money? The government. Well, we're the ones that fund the government. So if the government's running a deficit, it means our taxes have to go up in the future, which means our future expected income falls. Well, if you think back a couple videos ago, if you expect your future income to fall, you're going to save more today. In other words, instead of the interest rate being pushed up due to the government budget deficit, we get an offsetting increase in the supply of loanable funds because people start saving more today, and guess what? The equilibrium interest rate does not change, okay? That crowding out does not necessarily occur. The negative effect on economic activity due to an increase in the interest rate may not actually occur. Now, to be fair, Ricardo and Barrow also, particularly Barrow, look, there are other problems with government spending. Okay, for instance, the government is less efficient with every dollar than you are with your own money. Just talk to just try to navigate a government agency, right? I mean, they're totally inefficient. If I give you a dollar, you're going to be far more efficient with that dollar than the government will spending that dollar for you. So an increase in government spending is not a good thing in Barrow's eyes, and frankly it's not a very good thing in my eyes either, because you're reducing efficiency in the spending of that dollar, which means reduced economic activity from what it would have normally been had the public sector been able to spend that dollar. But that aside, it's interesting to think of that if people are rational and they do foresee income taxes increasing in the future to pay off the deficit, they will save more today. And according to Ricardo and Barrow, that will be an exactly offsetting scenario, and you will not get an increase in interest rate, and you won't get a negative impact on economic activity due to that increase in interest rate. Now, the last loose end I want to tighten up is the difference between change in the supply and demand of loanable funds and change in the quantity supplied and quantity demanded of loanable funds, okay? These are shifts of the curve. Shifts of the curve, okay? This is talking about changing the curve, moving the curve left to right, okay? The supplier demand of loanable funds curve. This is due to all of the stuff we just covered in the past several videos, okay? You get a shift of the curve. A change in quantity supplied or quantity demanded of loanable funds is movement along the curve from one point or another, and that is only due to a change in R. Okay? Now, a shift changes the interest rate. But if the interest rate changes on its own, you're going to get a change in the quantity supplied or quantity demanded of loanable funds. Okay? Let's think about this for a second. Okay? So you got the supply of loanable funds, demand of loanable funds. Let's just say the demand for loanable funds increases. Okay? Now we know that moves the interest rate up from here to here. Okay? This is an increase in the demand for loanable funds. That's this right here. But when we go from here to here, we're moving along the curve. In other words, we are changing the quantity supplied of loanable funds. That's this here. So this, that movement along the curve, is caused by a change in the interest rate. The shifting of the curve is due to change in expected income, yada, 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 all that stuff. Okay? So just want to clear it up. The difference between a change in the quantity supplied and quantity demanded of loanable funds, which is only caused by a change in the interest rate, and a shift of the curve, which is caused by all those other factors we just studied.